Welcome back to Sunrise as we continue this morning. Last week, South Africa and international delegates attended the 48th Annual World Economic Forum in Davos in Switzerland. Now, positive reports came out of the WEF regarding investor confidence and growth within South Africa and also in terms of international trading. Now, the rand reacted positively by hitting the 11.79 against the dollar since 2015. This seems to have boosted the image of the country and has provided a bit of hope for future developments. Joining us this morning to speak on these and what else came out of the World Economic Forum is brand South Africa CEO Kingsley Makhubela. Remember, you can be part of our conversation if you'd like by giving us a call on 011-447-1742 or 011-447-1620, and your comments are also welcome on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Good morning and thank you for joining us. Absheni.
Aye.
Mifukile.
Ifukile.
Okay, so now you just came back from the World Economic Forum and everyone is talking about what were the highlights. But maybe before we get to that, we went to the conference on the backdrop of like issues like negative rating action, sluggish economic growth, poor consumer and investor confidence in the country, and just the importance of why we need to prioritize economic reforms. And you going there as brand South Africa with the rest of the delegates to sell this country. It must have been sort of like nerve-wracking going there. What was the message and the plan when we went there as a country?
Well, good morning. This time around, the message, Deputy President was the head of the delegation, and the message was framed around dealing with the challenges that led to our downgrade. You will recall last year we received very negative downgrade from most agencies that are dealing with that. And issues around downgrade, they dealt with basically three fundamental issues that the Deputy President dealt with in the delegation in Davos. One was fiscal consolidation. Policy certainty was the other issue. The other issue was capacity of state-owned enterprises. So we went to Davos this time around on the backdrop of how the government reacted and dealt with the challenges within Eskom, because Eskom provides energy, and energy that gives mobility to the entire South African economy. So that's how the message was framed. But this message was not only sold by the Deputy President, business bought into the message of dealing with those challenges. And that's why this time around, I would say the message was well received, actually. If you look at the international media, you look at senior business people who were at Davos, global business leaders, you look at political leaders who were at Davos, they all accepted the manner in which we're dealing with our challenges. And that built a lot of confidence. I think we're able to boost the confidence that has gone down in terms of us having the capacity as a country to deal with our challenges. Okay, so now
so obviously there was a positive response. What would you say are the things that South Africa brought back in terms of highlights?
Let me tell you, one thing that you can't, you must continuously work on is a question of confidence. Remember, the confidence was low. I think coming back from Davos, we were able in Davos to deal with rebuilding this confidence. It's going to be a process, not a once-off event. But business leaders, and I mean global business leaders, they've started to actually have a different approach to how to invest in South Africa. Remember, we went there with the message that we're open for doing business. And a few years ago, brand South Africa and South Africa's participation at Davos, we framed our messages around open to do with business.
This time around, the first time they hear. It's not the first time.
It was quite incredible. The United States also came up with a theme, open for doing business. So these are some of the positive spin-off that are coming out of that, and we're hammering this message moving forward. But of course, we're dealing with the question of policy certainty. It was well received. How we deal with registration of companies, how companies do business in the country, the one-stop shop that has been created by the TTI. All these messages were well received in Davos.
Okay, so there's all those challenges were dealt with, but how do we package that and make sure that when we come back, we build on that as a country, that it's not just a talk shop and these politicians and billionaires and people who have power to make change get together, but that it trickles down to everyday people.
The pronouncement actually that the Deputy President made during his interaction with business was to reassure them that this is not a fry in the pan, that's the language that he used, that we're going to have consistent messages around dealing with those challenges. But we are not only we didn't only go to Davos to look at challenges, but also to provide hope for areas that are doing well, the manufacturing industry, how we're going to keep on capacitating this, our agricultural sector, and how we are going to deal with the challenges that we're having, the water challenges in the Western Cape. All of these issues have a direct impact in terms of our growth. But this growth must be sustainable. It must be inclusive. And last year, the World Economic Forum was much more focused on inclusive growth. But we're now tackling those issues in terms of our policy formulation and moving forward.
There was a lot of conversation about inclusivity and diversity as well, and how countries mustn't focus on just their national issues. And then, you know, you had America, who are more about like internalizing what their challenges and dealing with their country. But how do we do that as South Africa and on the continent?
I think all of us, we focus on dealing with question of inclusive growth. Inclusive growth, actually, it's not a choice. It's really fundamental that we deal with it. It's compulsory, because you're not going to have sustainable growth as long as the growth is much more focused narrowly on a small segment of the population. That's not sustainable. We'll keep on having high unemployment. And that's why part of dealing with this growth as a country, we're looking at the growth that will generate more jobs, that will trickle down to ordinary people who can benefit in the long term. But to do that, we need to deal with issues of transformation in a much more serious way. There's the only way that we're going to make a breakthrough in dealing with question of inclusive growth and growth that is narrowly concentrated on a small segment of the population.
So there's also, well, with the challenges around job creation, in terms of like, how do we develop the economy, create jobs, in times where there was also talk about a reskilling revolution because of the fourth industrial revolution and all these things that are coming in, that we might find that we're not ready for that as a country. How do we prepare ourselves for that?
Well, 2 years ago, the theme of the World Economic Forum was the fourth industrial revolution. But we were also looking into the unintended consequences of the fourth industrial revolution, where you have robots that are performing much more jobs and so on. As developing countries, those are things that we need to nuance as we move forward, because the fourth industrial revolution brings a lot of capacity. And I'm glad that government is starting to set up some form of a structure to look at the unintended consequences of the fourth industrial revolution, but also to leverage on the benefits that the fourth industrial revolution would bring to our growth as a country. And in the long run, develop us to be at par with countries that are developing, be able to compete. We can't compete with countries that are already reached, that have already reached this fourth industrial revolution, when we're still struggling to set up the basics.
A lot of discussion also, you know, touched on like business opportunities and potential financial investment. Building on that, on the return to South Africa, what happens next? Well,
South Africa, if you look at the World Economic Forum ranking, South Africa still has the best financial systems and highly respected. During the 2008 economic crisis, the banking crisis, we were not affected because of our strong and robust systems that we have within the place. So those are some of the advantages that we sell to the World Economic Forum. Not only that, we're selling systems and processes that we are able to protect foreign investment in this country, and the reports and indices that are conducted around the world are confirming that. So those are the messages that people look at. People actually at Davos, they're not looking at specific problems, they're looking at systemic issues, how do we manage them. But we have the capacity, the checks and balances that are built in our systems are very reassuring to ordinary people or business people around the world.
So how can ordinary people and business people align themselves to this you know, positive influence that's...
Well, business people we have a partnership with. We have a partnership with organized labor in terms of this messages. This message that we took to Davos had a serious buy-in from business. You'll recall a week before we went to Davos, the Deputy President had an interaction with senior business executives in this country, and they've made a contribution in terms of this message. So this is a joint message that we took to Davos.
So in terms of big business, that's all good and well, but how do you close the gap between big business and small
Precisely. We had, for instance, the organized small business that was part of this discussion, framing the message from the beginning. They contributed, and some of them, they went to participate at Davos this time around. And what the Deputy President said, he would like to see a much bigger participation of black business particularly. Because those black business represents some of the challenges that we are having in small and medium enterprises in the country. So that their issues are affected when big business make decisions, they take into account the small business, how they're struggling to move around.
As Brand South Africa, then you continue to carry this message forward around the world. It's a continuous process. Do you repackage it? How does it work going forward?
We would continue hammering on issues of indicating that we are open to do business. We'll continue to showcase areas where we are starting to streamline our policies. We need to look at those things. For instance, there's an issue around, as I said, the one-stop shop that the DTI is having. It's a fundamental process that we have undertaken. It's very good. We need to showcase that. That's why you're starting to see a huge growth in our motor industry, because some of the bureaucracies have been streamlined that we need to continue to do. We need to continue to highlight the robustness of our financial system and the resilience generally of our economic system to deal with the challenges moving forward.
Okay, let's take a caller. We've got Titus on the line. Hello, Titus.
Hi, guys. How are you?
We're good. And yourself, Titus? Your question or comment?
No, I just want to comment, guys.
Okay, I'm not sure. Can you hear that, Mr. Makhubela?
No.
Okay. All right, can we just make sure that the sound on the floor is clear so that Makhubela can hear? Oh, Mr. Makhubela can hear. All right, let me take your question and then I'll try and translate. Yes, Titus?
Okay, I just want to comment a little bit. I think our government is focusing mostly on the urban areas. What about the rural areas?
Okay.
Because
So
some of the people, they come from the rural areas, they come to the urban areas. That's why you see how things is so populated.
okay. All right. Titus feels that, you know, maybe some of the government programs are focused on people who are in urbanized areas more than rural areas. I mean, is rural development something that they touched on in Davos?
Actually, Davos does not only deal with business and government, it deals with social issues. Issues of food security, this time around even question of nutritious food, rural developments, they deal with them within Davos. So it captures all those things. When we speak about inclusive growth, we also deal with the balance between the urban and the rural areas. And given our own dynamics, because most of the poor people that you find in the country, they live in rural areas where there's no access to basic amenities. So those issues are factored in terms of how we deal with them at Davos. In Davos, we don't sell urban South Africa, we sell South Africa, and we try to showcase the potential that we have from a low growth, given the question of the rural areas, and how we're going to moving forward.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for joining us this morning, Rachel.